All right, Gary, we're going to see how this experiment works. We're going live on YouTube. Made it a public post, and we've tweeted it. I shared it with some of my, Army members over on our In This League Patreon. So, this show is the Individual Defensive Podcast brought to you by Fantrax, and we're going live to take live questions here. We have some in the queue, but Gary, how do you feel about a live show?
Oh, our future's so bright, I got to wear shades, man.
Yeah, it is. You are wearing the shades indoors, so
in the basement, even. What? Everyone doesn't wear. Everyone doesn't wear sunglasses in the basement. I know I do. So,
well, some of us just need to look cool, man, and you're definitely looking cool. So, this is going to be interesting. We've tweeted this out. And if you guys have any questions and you're in this room, the number is always wrong on the listing that I have. So if you want to drop in your questions, feel free to drop them in. There's a little bit of news going on here, Gary. And the Titans GM, John Robinson, said that the Titans are still monitoring Jadeveon Clowney. So I still feel like now that kind of it seems that AB is off the table for the Seahawks, I would still put Clowney in Seattle, but what are your thoughts on the potential of Clowney going to Tennessee?
They'd be behind Seattle. I mean, I think we're to the point where it's going to be one of those two teams, and I would expect there's going to be some movement on that fairly quickly. Now that, you've got rookies for a few teams that have reported. Most of the rest of the league will have by the end of the week. There'll be a few day lag while they all get tested and everything. But as we start to see veterans report to camp, that dam's going to break. And it's not just going to be Jadeveon Clowney. It's going to be guys like Logan Ryan and Everson Griffin. And most of those veterans that are still out there looking for work, they're going to find it relevant. I agree with you. I think he's going to wind up in Seattle. But Tennessee wouldn't surprise me. That would be my number 2.
Yeah, exactly. I love that the first question we got here is a baseball question too. So this is what happens because I do so many sports. I am surprised that Jordan Montgomery didn't make the Yankees opening day roster, but I'll talk about that on the baseball show later this week. But Gary, we also had the preseason get shucked down to no preseason games. So we're probably going to get some fairly sloppy football early in the season here. I think the first month might look all like Thursday night football games. So it's probably going to be a little bit ugly.
I think it was Steve Young that has said for years that the first month of the regular season essentially is the preseason for most veteran players.
Right.
I agree with you that the first month it's going to be choppier than we're used to seeing. I think the biggest impact there is going to be young players, the rookies, who are trying to break into, or guys who've switched teams. What you want this year, it would appear, other than for 2020 to have never happened, is continuity. So if you're a team that hasn't had a lot of turnover on either side of the ball, your coaching staff hasn't flipped, I think those teams, at least to me on paper, would appear to have an advantage at the beginning of the year, which means that the Saints will go 1-3 in September, and none of it will make any sense because it's football. None of it ever does. And I give up on 2020. If a meteor crashed into the earth tomorrow, would we be sad or happy? I don't know at this point.
I don't want that to happen. I'm good with where we're at, but I know that no one would be surprised. That is an absolute fact. And then the NFL and NFLPA agreed on protocols that include testing for COVID on a daily basis for at least the opening 2 weeks of training camp. And I read today, I don't know if this is a proven fact. This is just something I think that was on my scroll from Bleacher Report or on Twitter or from someone, that it's going to cost the league $75 million to test for COVID this year. And you read that and that's a jarring number, but who cares if it's going to cost you $75 million to test? As long as you get your season where you're making billions of dollars, I think you should be okay. So yes, the tests are very expensive, but it's very needed this time. So, I don't really care about the cost. Let's just get it done. Right, Gary?
Oh yeah, they just handed Patrick Mahomes $500 million. I think they can the 75. Yes, 75 billion is a lot of money to most people. To the National Football League, price of doing business in 2020. Yeah, 70. I wouldn't care if it was 225. You spend it, make sure, because if you don't have the testing and things blow up, then your season comes to a grinding halt, and that's that. So if you want your TV money, you're going to have to spend your testing money.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know a lot of teams have already made, a lot of teams have already made the proclamations of fewer players or fewer fans in the stand. I think Vegas might have said none. And I know that in Texas it's going to be limited capacity. In a lot of states, you don't think any fans are going to be in any stands this year?
By the time we get to week 1, no. If you're planning on going to a football game this year, you need to make alternate plans because it's not. I don't even think college football is crazy enough to actually try that once game starts, and they need the gate revenue a lot more than the NFL does. No, it's just you're asking for a disaster at that point.
Yeah, and it's not like from something I read was that all of the teams may need to get the fans to sign waivers, and you're not going to get every fan to sign a waiver. And what are you going to do? Like, is that going to be part of the entry process? Is, all right, we're going to scan you and also sign this. I mean, it's too much to ask. People have to be out there 3 days ahead of time to get everything done. I remember going to the Cardinal Stadium for the first game, and it took us an hour and a half to get in the stadium because it's just new people doing stuff instead of, the usual, okay, you stand in this line, it's 20, 30 minutes and you're in, because you have to go through all the rigmarole of, getting scanned and patted down and emptying your pockets and all that crap. So,
you can't get everyone to wear a mask. You really think you're going to be able to get everyone to read and sign a waiver? Okay.
Yeah, and are you gonna buy 100,000 pens also, so that nobody has to touch the same pen twice? All that crap.
You get a souvenir pen when you go to sign your waiver. And now, of course, we had to increase your ticket price a little, $45 to pay for that pen that cost us $250. But you have a souvenir to take home from your attendance of a game in 2020. No,
they'll just write it into the ticket stuff. I mean, that's what, just like they do at baseball games where, the team is not, they're not held responsible for, any person taking baseball to the dome. Like, you need to be paying attention. It would be the same thing. It'd be written into the ticket process. The warning on the back of the ticket, it would just go into that.
Oh, so, I always read that.
No, yeah, of course. You remember that South Park episode where Butters just refused, or Kyle refused to read any of the stuff?
And the terms of service from Apple, and they turn him into a
human sentai pad. So yeah. I mean, I can imagine that. Yeah, our guy Jag over here says, can you imagine a TSA type security at stadiums? And the only time I experienced that was, and I love mentioning this whenever I can, and Jag knows where I'm going, was when I went to Game 7 of the World Series in 2001, because it was the first gigantic sporting event after 9/11 had happened. So it took a long time to get into the stadium at that point, and we had the stealth bomber go over us and all that stuff. But that process, like, they made people take their shoes off. It was a whole thing. But I tell you what, sitting in the stands, I felt pretty safe. So I didn't think anything was going to happen. They were very, very thorough on their checks of everyone. But hopefully, it might just be cheaper to not have fans in than to do this whole process of having fans in. And then what if there's an outbreak in the stadium? And then do you shut the stadium down and all that stuff? So I'm with you. I think there probably won't be fans in the stands. But let's go ahead and answer some questions and see who trickles in and if we get any live questions as well. So the first one is an email that I got, Gary, and this says, hi, Scott and Gary, huge fan of the show. Keep up the good work. Who are your sleepers at linebacker, cornerback, and safety this year? I play in a contract league where players are signed to multi-year contracts, so most of the top guys aren't available. If you want some more details, starting IDP spots are 1 defensive tackle, 1 defensive end, 1 hybrid of those 2 positions, 3 linebackers, 2 corners, 2 safeties, and then 1 flex. He says his current roster is Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, Colin Farrell, Jerome Baker, Jamal Adams, Darnell Savage. As you can see, I'm pretty weak at linebacker and have little depth at defensive end / safety. Thanks in advance, and I'm looking forward to listening. Best regards from Zach H. So what do you think, or who are your sleepers specifically at linebacker, corner, and safety this season, Gary?
Well, linebacker's hard because they're starting 3. And you got multi-year contracts, so younger guys are going to get attention. I mean, if you could get, if a guy like Logan Wilson in Cincinnati, the rookie middle linebacker's there.
The first name that I thought of, too, was Logan Wilson.
Sion Takitaki in Cleveland, because I think most people are higher on Mac Wilson because he played a lot more last year. But my understanding is the Browns, at least plan A, is going to be leave Wilson on the weak side and put Takitaki in the middle. So I think there could be some sneaky value there. I mean, this would be a great situation if we had some idea how the linebacker situations were going to shake out in places like Philadelphia.
Right.
Where you could go get a guy. But this offseason, we have no clue. So those are the first 2 names. Because, again, if you're doing multi-year, you want to try to get a guy who's on the younger side. I mean, if you want to go veterans, I think Tahir Whitehead in Carolina is being overlooked by a lot of people because he's Tahir Whitehead. But if you're looking for a guy who can hold down the fort for you for a year or 2, which is honestly all I think the Panthers want him to do, he would probably be available rather cheaply. It's a lot easier when you're only starting 1 defensive or a couple defensive linemen, or you can flex a tackle into that spot. 3 linebackers, 12 teams, contract league. A lot of those, the younger names are going to be gone. So maybe look a little older. Don't worry about what's going to happen in 2021 or 2022 and just live for the now.
Yeah, and if you're looking for just like super late stuff here, what about maybe some of those Rams guys, Micah Kaiser, Troy Reeder, somebody like that way down the list?
Of the group, Kaiser's the guy I would target because it looked like he was going to start next to Littleton last year, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
So he's got the familiarity with the defense, blah, blah, blah. And that helps in 2020. It really does.
Yeah, maybe Josh Bynes with the Bengals as well. If you're looking really down the list, we mentioned that a lot of people are into Fosse Lucan from Atlanta. That's a guy that some people are in on. So maybe if he's floating around for you in one of those deeper leagues, he could be an option too. And I'm trying to look for other older guys or guys that are kind of cast-offs at this point. A lot of people not in on Montez Sweat anymore. You mentioned that when we were talking about linebackers. The other week, people act like he's just not even on the team anymore. So he could be one way down there. And yeah, I don't know.
Any of the Washington. I mean, if Reuben Foster can stay healthy, that could be a huge. Washington, much like Philadelphia, we have no idea who's starting inside linebackers or the starting 3-down linebackers are going to be to open the season. And I don't know if we could be sitting here toward the end of August, 2 weeks out from opening week, and still not have any idea because we're not going to have those preseason games and there's not going to be that many reports out of camp. So, if you get the right dart, there's going to be value to be had in there somewhere. But this year, you're playing darts blindfolded as opposed to just playing darts.
Now, how about corners? Because corners, it's a little tougher, of course, but there's you got to have a little bit of, I don't know, like the guy that always pops up in my mind because he sucks, but he's on a team that's really good is Breeland. Bashaud Breeland is a really good option at corner because he's not good, and teams have to play catch up on the Chiefs all the time. And Byron Murphy, who we mentioned last week as well, or 2 weeks ago, I think we're doing NFC questions, is a good option as well. Do you have any other corner options as far as sleepers go?
Oh, the other corner in Kansas City, Charvarius Ward. Depending on what fantasy rider you're playing on, if Jalen Mills of the Eagles still has cornerback eligibility, he's moving to safety this year, so that could be a loophole. Now, granted, that loophole might get closed next year, but at cornerback, you should not in any way, shape, or form be concerned about next year. It's odd. I'm not even worried about next week when I'm rostering quarterbacks. I'm looking at matchups like, okay, you're my guy this week, and then you'll go away and I'll get somebody new. If you don't have to sign corners to a multi-year contract, that should never happen in your IDP league unless you're starting like 5-0.
Right, exactly. And, just look for some teams that early in the season have unexpected, offensive breakouts. You know what I mean? Like that could be big into playing into your corner's hands and safety's hands as well, is that garbage time when the teams have to play catch up on them. You know what I mean? So teams that just, maybe not out of nowhere, but, if the Vikings are playing a weak opponent, whoever is going to play them that week, whoever that weak opponent is, let's say it's the Jets or someone. We know the Jets are probably going to be playing a lot of fourth quarter catch up. So go and look at some of those guys in Minnesota. You know what I mean? So
do we know who the corners are in Minnesota this year?
Isn't Harrison Hand one of the starters? I'm having a hard time racking my brain now.
They all left in the offseason.
Yeah, I wanted to say Trey Wayne's real bad, but he's gone, obviously. Who are the starters in Minnesota? Let me look.
Well, they drafted a kid.
Oh, that's right. The kid from TCU.
Right.
Oh, Jesus. It's Mike Hughes, Holton Hill. That's who I'm thinking of. Jeff Gladney is the guy. So, and Harrison Hand is in there as well. That's who I was thinking of before, but I don't know if he's going to end up being a starter. They list Hughes and Gladney as the two starters, with obviously Harrison Smith as far as the safeties go. So, that it's just that my point is you can play matchups on corner much better. Yeah, you should, even in a contract league. There's going to be some guys that come and go. And the last one was safety. You got any sleeper safeties there, Gary?
Well, I already mentioned Jalen Mills, who I honestly kind of like at the back end of that. I do. I like him at the back end of the Eagles defense. I can get him for nothing. I'm loading up on him all over the place. By October, I'll be cussing him on this very show. I'll be like, Jalen Mills, you're dead to me. I don't even want to. Carl Joseph in Cleveland, if he can stay healthy for 5 minutes.
Yeah. John Abram, we mentioned last week.
Yeah. And is he really going to be, if he is available in that league, he would be right at the top.
He might not be available in that league, but he is a sleeper as far as redraft goes for a lot of spots.
Right. Had he not gotten hurt so early last year, he was a guy I liked going into the 2019 season.
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many. Adrian Phillips in New England, I hope he supplants Patrick Chung in fairly short order, because it's about time somebody knocked Patrick Chung out of the starting lineup and back of that new one. I know the Patriots defense is, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but am I really Patrick Chung? Still?
I still like Eddie Jackson. He's not consistent, but Eddie Jackson, will take one to the house on occasion. So if they're playing, that's a real good ad. If the Bears offense, and I know this could be a joke to most people listening, but if the Bears offense, clicks in any way, whether it's with, Big Nick energy over there or Mitchell Trubisky, whoever is the quarterback, if they click, Eddie Jackson is one of those guys that he would be incredibly valuable on a team whose offense was great and had to face not as many run plays in the fourth quarter, a bunch of passing plays, because he can take him to the house. So he is absolutely a playmaker. Not going to rack up a ton of tackles or anything like that, but if he gets his hands on the ball, he does tend to take it all the way back to the house. So
Juan Thornhill in Kansas City and Darnell Savage in Green Bay would be. I mean, if you're going to look young and upside, now there's no guarantee those guys.
I think he has Savage. So he's already on the ball there. He has Adams and Savage. So those are.
Well, if you've got Adams and Savage in safety, you're doing all right. Maybe add a short-term compliment to Savage, because Adams you're rolling out there every week. So yeah, you ain't too. We got to work on your linebackers, but we will. We got time before the season starts.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? If you're sitting at a position of, offensive depth, maybe flip one of those guys for for a linebacker as well. So because offensive guys, I think almost regardless of what type of league you're in, they're just always going to be more valuable or more valued than the defensive guys, regardless of what league you're in, even if they score parallel, specifically running backs. Running backs are always hard to come by. So, but let's open it up to anyone in here. If you guys want to throw out a question in the chat, throw it out. Otherwise, Gary, you have some questions that were asked to you on Twitter, and you just kind of compiled them here. So let's start out with one of those while we're waiting for some to come in. Which big name defensive lineman, say top 10, is most likely to bust in 2020, Gary? So top 10 defensive linemen, who do you think is most likely to bust?
Probably one of the guys that's on the back end of my top 10, which I think my 8, 9, 10 is Chase Young, Sam Hubbard, Max Crosby.
Oh, how dare you?
I'm going to take Hubbard out of there because I think he's going to be just fine in 2020. I don't know that he's going to, outdo his performance from last year by a significant amount, but I don't expect that he's going to fall off either. So
here, let me give you the fantasy pros.
Young or Crosby.
Let me give you the Fantasy Pros top 10, and maybe there's one that sticks out like a sore thumb out of this group, but it's Danielle Hunter, Joey Bosa, Aaron Donald at 3, Myles Garrett, J.J. Watt at 5, Cameron Jordan, Nick Bosa, Cam Hayward at 8, with DeForest Buckner and Sam Hubbard at 10. So any of those names stick out to you that maybe you wouldn't put in the top 10 because of the potential to bust?
Hayward's a little high, but I get that based off last year. And Cam Hayward is an excellent defensive lineman, and it depends on how you define bust. I can see him slide back into DL2 territory in 2020. I don't know that I would call that a bust. Of that group, I'd say probably Buckner, if only because you're switching teams, some uncertainty. How are they going to use him? The numbers he put out, he had a lot better talent around him in San Francisco than he did in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
so there would be Buckner. I don't, honestly, of my top 10, I would probably say Chase Young, because he's a rookie, and you never know, especially in this offseason, if he's a little slow to acclimate to the scheme. They've got plenty of talent around him in Washington. They don't have to rush him out onto the field for 1,000 snaps. Much as it pains me.
In that one, and there's more people jumping in here. Feel free to drop your IDP questions on the side here. It pains me to say this, but I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like Nick Bosa out of the top 10 is the most likely to bust. Now, he had 1 million pressures last year, and yeah, well, that face, I bet I'm going to get that face in a bunch of spots, but just last season, his numbers weren't fantastic. He averaged 6.7 points per game, which would have been the lowest of all the returners. The only guy in the same range as him is J.J. Watt, who only played 8 games in Torres Peck. So, it pains me to say Nick Bosa most likely to bust in the top 10. That's probably how I would go with it there. Now,
and
Rob,
nothing else to me, this says that the top 10 this year, it looks pretty good. There isn't a guy in that top 10 that I look at and say, ooh.
I think so too. Now, our guy Rob asks, how much confidence do you have in his CJ Mosley comeback this season? So,
that's not the first time I've been asked that either. It's on our
right.
list,
yeah, it's on the list. So I think this is a pertinent question that a lot of people are asking. So your confidence level in a CJ Mosley comeback, because he only played 2 games last season. So what are you thinking?
Technically, he played 2 games. He played 1 game, got hurt, tried to come back, made it like half a dozen plays into the game, and his season was over.
Right.
I think I have him in my top 10. Honestly, and given where you can get him in drafts this year, I'm probably going to have quite a few shares of CJ. Maybe I'm overconfident about Mosley, but it's not. His 2018 numbers weren't great, but they weren't terrible. His 2017 numbers, I think he was first or second in fantasy points, depending on your scoring system, I mean, if I can get that guy in LB2 territory, if I can get that kind of upside from a second or even I've seen him fall outside the top 20 linebackers in a draft. And if you can get him there, I got to roll the dice on that. He's not all that old. He doesn't have an especially long injury history. There's not a ton of talent around him at linebacker in New York. They gave him all the money ever to be a fixture at inside linebacker for him. I'm on the Mosley wagon this year.
I don't have him that high. I have him. He's my linebacker 15 because, getting a little bit older, going to New York, and a guy that we talked about last week. Now I'll move him up if Avery Williamson gets cut, but Avery Williamson's going to eat in a little bit too, because we both agree that he is super underrated. But he also can be a cut candidate and probably most likely to get cut. And by the way, look at Doug here. I told you, Doug Bevels makes some good points here. He said D4 got the knee cleaned up. Eric Armstead is healthy, and they drafted Kinlaw. And he said, "Watch it, Bogman." # Niner Nation. So not a popular take on Nick Bosa. And look, I'm not predicting him to bust. All I picked was one of the top 10 and I have him in my top 10 bust. Who is it going to be? And let's not forget his last name is Bosa, and Bosa's like to get hurt. How about this one from our guy, Sean? Shut up, Gary. This one from our guy, Sean, says, Danielle Hunter lost Linval Joseph and Eric Everson Griffin. Do you think he underperforms this year? I think these are great points to make. So what do you think about the potential for Danielle Hunter, to underperform, mainly being not, I wouldn't say a bust, but probably not worth the number 1 overall defensive lineman pick?
And I almost didn't rank him number 1. I finally had, because he's just the last 2 years was just so robotically consistent. I mean, the tackle numbers, the sack numbers were identical, and the tackle numbers barely nearly were. I agree. The loss of Joseph and especially Everson Griffin is you can't ignore it. And I don't know if I'm willing to pay what it would cost to get Danielle Hunter in a draft. I think I'm willing to wait. An IDP draft I'm in right now, I waited for Cameron Jordan, and I think I got him 6th or 7th among defensive linemen. And given where the bigger names went, and y'all know I love me some Myles Garrett, but given where they're going as opposed to where I can get a guy like Cam Jordan, I feel like maybe that's that sweet spot in that top 10 this year is the back half. Not those 1 through 5 guys, the 6 through 10.
And it makes defensive linemen that much deeper this year than it has been. Because usually we have a couple top end, 3 to 4 super top end guys. And then you have, the secondary guys. And then it gets real rough after that. And we do definitely still have that real rough part of defensive linemen for this season. But I think the front end of it kind of goes from Danielle Hunter all the way down to like a Max Crosby. So 14, maybe 15 deep. And then after that, it's kind of, you're taking a risk on where Clowney lands, where, if DeMarcus Lawrence can get back, if Ngakoue is going to play, guys like that. So I just think the top end of defensive line is a little bit deeper here. Sean or Barrow here says top rookie, and that it's a tough call between Chase Young and Patrick Queen, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's this offseason isn't helping matters any because those guys are all so much farther behind. I mean, by now they'd already been through rookie camp and mini camp and OTAs, and they'd have been on the practice field for a month, at least just practice after practice, and we would have a lot better idea of which guys maybe were struggling a little bit and which guys just took to the scheme. It's going to vary depending on your scoring. Big plays, I think, would still favor Chase Young. That's it. I'm going to favor Patrick Queen, if only because the Ravens need him.
I'm going
to not that Washington doesn't need Chase Young, because they do, but they've got pass rushers. Baltimore's inside linebackers are 2 rookies and a pile of poo.
I'm Kenneth Murray, man. I'm still going with Kenneth Murray over Patrick.
Plays for the Chargers, man.
They're not cursed.
He's going to die.
They're not actually cursed, Gary. That's not a real thing. How about this one from Sean C? Can Quan Alexander be a number 1 this year? As far, I guess that's a top 12 linebacker. Quan has had a couple big seasons in the past. I have knocked down Fred Warner significantly because of Quan Alexander and his return this year, but you're not even sure he's going to be in the starting lineup on a snap-to-snap basis, Gary.
Right. He could be in the starting lineup. I just don't know that it's guaranteed that he's going to play on the weak side. I think because Drake Greenlaw outplayed him last year, just straight outplayed him. Even when Quan was healthy, Greenlaw was the better linebacker.
Yeah.
With the abbreviated camp and Alexander coming off the injury, and given how well Greenlaw played down the stretch last year, I'm less confident in Alexander than maybe I would have been if there was a regular offseason. And Alexander is dropping in drafts. I'm a free fall. I mean, I've seen him fall outside the top. Like in a 12-team league, everyone will have 4, and Quan Alexander is still sitting there. So if you want to throw a dart that late in the hope that you can get back that Quan Alexander that had, what was it, like 106, 111 solos that one year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm not going to fault you for it. It's a lottery ticket. And if it hits, that could be a league winner. But counting on it this year, I doubt it, honestly.
And honestly, counting on it is the way I feel for Fred Warner. I think there's too many good linebackers. I don't want to invest. He's going too high. If he fell a little bit, I would take him. He is supremely talented. He's the best linebacker on the Niners roster. I'll give that up all day long. But I don't know about this mix, and I don't know about him repeating those numbers. Doug asks again, Shaq Barrett repeat season, fellas? ? I think we both talked about this a little bit as far as expected regression in the NFC question show. And I think it's a resounding no. Not that he can't be good again, but repeat season, I'm definitely not going to count on it.
Right. It's highly on. I can't remember the last time I saw a guy put up 19 and a half sacks in back-to-back years, because I don't know that anyone ever has. It's just, and sacks are kind of a fluky stat. I mean, he could come out and play every bit as well in 2020 as he did in 2019 and get 11 sacks, and everyone will ask, what's wrong with Shaq Barrett? No, the Buccaneers should move on and blah, blah, blah. That's just the nature of the beast when you're an edge rusher. So I think he's going to have a good season. He's not going to have the statistical season he did last year. They have an excellent pass rush with Barrett on one side and Pierre-Paul on the other one. But J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, those guys don't go out and back up 19, 20 sack seasons. Shaq Barrett had, I think it was 14 and a half sacks in his first 5 years in the NFL in Denver, 4 or 5 years, and then had 19 and a half last year. So asking him to back that up, setting the bar a little.
Okay. So let's just repeat what we said last time then. Expected regression for Barrett. Where are you putting him? I think in most leagues he only qualifies a linebacker, right? So where are you putting him on your list?
He'd be in the 40s, because in most scoring systems, for a guy to rank higher than that if he's an edge rusher, because the tackle numbers aren't going to be there, you have to put up that ridiculous 15-plus sack season. And I mean, I could see him getting 11 or 12, but assuming that you're talking between 40 and 50 tackles to go with it, that's probably going to land him in the 40s.
Yeah, exactly. I have him like in the mid 30s. So I built in some regression, but obviously I don't think he's going to average that 10 points per game. And also with the 19 and a half sacks last year, he had 6 forced fumbles. That probably won't repeat either. So I think I don't know that we have any live questions on here. So let's go back to the list that you made. And I love this one. Which DL2 has the best chance to crack the top 10? And guys that are listening, if you guys want to go ahead and fire your answer on that too, that would be great. So which DL2 has a chance to climb into the top 10? And I mean, there's a lot of good options here. I like Frank Clark to come up a little bit. If Ngakoue plays, I think he would be up there as well. Clowney, depending on landing spot, can always get in there. Is there who else do you think could end up as a DL1?
I could see Brian Burns in Carolina. making a jump in year 2, given the season he had, and he's going to see a bump in snaps. So he's a guy that the upside is there, and I was impressed with what I saw from him as a rookie. So that would be my guy.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Jordan Raines shows up. Montez Sweat, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Josh Allen. I like all of these answers. We talked about Josh Allen a little bit. I'm a little nervous if he doesn't have Ngakoue playing on that other side, to see what he does this year and maybe potentially take a hit if Ngakoue is holding out. I don't know that we expect Ngakoue to actually hold out because that is a rare occasion, but he's saying all those things. So that could definitely be one in there. Is there anyone on that list, Sweat, Jones, Clark, Allen, that you don't like?
No, I think Sweat would probably be the more a dart throw than the other guys, only because it is so crowded. And then Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Josh Allen, the snaps are going to be there for those guys.
Yeah, Melvin Ingram.
Melvin Ingram's kind of been flirting with that for a while, and he gets the benefit of playing opposite Joey Bosa. So, and Ingram's actually, he's going in what my good friend Walton Sperlin would call a position of value this year. So Ingram dropped a little bit. He didn't have a bad year last year. He just didn't really have a great one. So he's a guy that's worth looking at in that DL2 territory, that he's being drafted a lot closer to his floor than his ceiling.
Did you see me draft Clelin Ferrell in the giant ass draft? I mean, I also took Antonio Brown, so of course you did. So let's not, he's more of a dart throw, but I would put him in the dart throw with Montez Sweat. He's probably down closer in that range, but is more of a dart throw. But hey, you got to admit, having Max Crosby play on the other side is nice. And coming into the season, hopefully fully healthy. Look, if he doesn't do it this year, I'm going to have to get off the train because the train's already set on fire, right? So the train's on fire a little bit. So I'm over here. I'm the conductor looking back going, oh, man, I hope that fire can stop before we get there. You know what I mean? No,
honestly, we already unhooked the rest of the train. So all it is the
I'm the only one left?
Yeah, that's hurtling up Farrell Mountain. Just logging.
Yeah, all right, fine. I'll be the only one to find the gold at the end of the rainbow too there. So don't you worry about me.
You're going to find the gold at the end of the rainbow in a burning locomotive.
That's right. That's right. It's going to be right where the leprechaun told me it was going to be. I like this one. Who is the biggest name at linebacker who will fall flat in 2020? I think you guys have my answer. Doug, can I get some earmuffs real quick from you? Fred Warner. Fred Warner is the biggest name that will fall flat, in my opinion.
Oh, see, there are several guys that make me at least somewhat nervous. And I agree with you. Warner is one of them. I'm trying to run through my own personal top 5 real quick. Okay, which guys am I not really crazy about in there?
I think Joe Schobert just ending up in a new situation. I don't know that he'll fall flat.
Guys like Schobert and Martinez, which you wouldn't think because when healthy, they've been just ridiculously productive. But anytime you switch schemes, especially again in this offseason where the offseason has been to 25 minutes, that could be an issue and you don't really have to drop that far. I mean, if you're drafting a guy like Martinez or Schobert top 5, and they wind up finishing, say, LB 30, then you're looking at that at the end of the year, pulling your hair out, where they really didn't have that terrible a season. And I think that's one thing we're going to hammer home. Whether you're playing regular fantasy football or IDP fantasy football, it's going to be a weird year. And there's going to be weirdness just baked into a lot of it.
Right. So
the linebacker I most expect to underperform is all of them that don't overperform.
Oh, wow. What a great answer.
Well, hold on. Let me find my list.
Spoken like a true veteran, spoken like a true politician, I guess I should say. Yeah, I think Jordan Hicks has a chance too with Isaiah Simmons next to him and then bringing him in Devondre Campbell. I think that he has a chance to fall a little bit. I like that Shawn Teague says the entire Rams linebacker group has a chance to fall on their face. I think that's a pretty good one too. Did you find anyone else?
If Corey Littleton has a bad year, I'm going to be emotionally distraught.
How many leagues? How many leagues already do you own Corey Littleton?
I have him in a few where it's a dynasty. And, you know, Jalen Smith, if Van Der Esch comes back, you can see the numbers drop off a little bit.
I'm with
Roquan
Doug in
Smith,
here.
I still have him.
I'm with Doug in here who says Shaq Thompson now with a clear path and all that I've waited on scares me. Could flop. I agree with him too. That's what we're high on to hear Whitehead.
I wouldn't necessarily call Shaq Thompson a high-end linebacker, but I get why you would be concerned about Shaq Thompson, especially since they brought in Whitehead. They bring in Whitehead, but they gave him the green dot, which would seem to indicate that new coaching staff isn't supremely confident in Shaq Thompson's ability to be the signal caller for the defense and kind of run things. And to hear Whitehead is the bane of many in existence because he'll show up. He's not going to get 130 tackles. He'll get like 111.
He'll eat enough to eat into the guy next to him. Yeah, exactly. Jim Salvatore asks us, who could be some breakout edge candidates like Za'Darius Smith and Shaq Barrett last season? We've already mentioned one of them, Brian Burns and Montez Sweat definitely have to fall into that group. Are there any off the top of your head that also come in there, Gary?
I'm trying to think of a 3-4 guy that Bradley Chubb already broke out. He just needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, that is way more about staying healthy. They said Rashaan Evans is going to play more on the edge this year, so maybe he gets a little bit of that role as well.
Right team. Maybe this is the year that Harold Landry or. Again, Vic Beasley kind of broke out with Atlanta playing defensive end, but he's going to be playing edge rusher this year. Maybe he recaptures some of that pass form he had with the Falcons. Maybe that frees up more single teams than Harold Landry. There's a team to look at, the Tennessee edge rushers, because you're going to be able to get both those guys for next to nothing.
Yeah. So how about Rashawn Gary? I don't know that there's a path to a lot of playing time, but that's a guy that was super hyped up, high draft pick. I think he was a second rounder, if I'm remembering correctly. Might have been a first rounder. I can't remember, to be honest with you, but that's a guy that could kind of come out of nowhere. I like Josh Uche as a rookie as well.
Nope. Gary played at Michigan, so he's a bum.
He played at Michigan, so there's just no way. Nothing you can give him. Anybody else? I'm trying to go down this list, and it's getting real ugly. I don't see too many other guys there. So
there's just not a lot of 3-4 edge guys. They all broke out last year. I mean, they kind of wiped out our list.
Yeah, I mean, Bud Dupree finally even came. Remember, his nickname was Dud Dupree. So this is a good question here. What is in the cup that you're drinking from, Gary?
Huh? Oh, Perrier.
Yeah, right. Mixed with some vodka? Come on.
Mineral water. No,
mineral water.
I didn't have a chance to get to the liquor store. It might, in theory, be a nice domestic cerveza, but I wasn't going to just drink it out of the can because I don't want to give nobody free advertising.
That's right. Yeah.
Dear American beer sponsors, if you would like me to consume your product on our fine program, please reach out and contact us.
Doug to Perry in my ass.
I come cheap too.
That's funny stuff. Let's see. Let's do another question here. Buy or sell Miles Jack in 2020?
Sell. Yeah. Sell. I've been selling Miles Jack since I don't know how many. He's been in the league. I think this will be his 5th year, and I've been selling him since the second one. No, thank you.
I'm not in. And Schobert just wrecks most of his value. But I also said, if he has some weird attitude problem or anything, I still like Quarterman. So I know you're not in on Quarterman probably at all, Gary, but
devil's advocate with Jack is that most people are selling him so he's cheap this year. And it sounds like they are going to at least try him on the weak side, which beats him playing Sam linebacker, gives him a better chance to get nickel snaps. But it also means this will be his 3rd linebacker position. He's played every spot there is to play now going into his 5th season. And it's just when a guy moves around like that and never seems to settle into a spot, I don't know why the Jaguars extended him to begin with, but I'm not running the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
how about who will be the surprise star on the back end of 2020 among defensive backs, Gary?
Well, I think we rattled off a lot of them. with that first question, Abram is a guy that I keep coming back to. I've targeted Jonathan Abram in quite a few drafts. If I can get,
do you think anyone? Are you looking for anyone to take over on the back end, like maybe a Chun or anybody like that?
Oh, Jeremy Chin in Carolina. Again, the concern with rookies and the time they're going to have, but the opportunity should be there for him. And that Carolina defense, there's opportunity galore, because you would think that Carolina defense is going to be on the field quite a bit. And that means tackle ops. And, Tahir Whitehead and Shaq Thompson aren't bad linebackers, but they aren't what I'd call great linebackers either. So that should mean opportunities for the safety. Yeah, Chin's a guy I'd dart throw. I don't think I'd take him as like a top 15 defensive back. But once you get outside that top 15, 18 guys, if there's a guy you want, take him. I mean, if it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't work out, week 3, you throw him back to the waiver wire and go get, I don't know, Carl Joseph or Jalen Mills or some guy neither me or Bogman has heard of, who we'll be talking about in week 3. Like, do you even know who this is? Are we sure he's a real person? But yeah, with defensive backs, they're actual boys.
What about before you start laughing, by the way, no, I don't think he can stay healthy. But Justin Evans for the Bucks, if Tom Brady is going to improve that offense and he's going to run some hybrid of what he did in New England and what Bruce Arians likes to do, Bruce Arians likes to throw the football, especially when there's no running game in Tampa Bay. He could run up the score on some teams, and a lot, like I said, a lot of that fourth quarter comeback or at least matching point for point throughout the game lends towards the back end for tackles a little bit too.
I used to like the Justins. No, there's Justin Evans in Tampa and Justin Reed in Houston, and I have invested in both.
I like Reed better. I'll just throw that out.
Yeah, me too. But honestly, if I was going to invest in one of the Tampa defensive backs at this point, I think I'd go with the rookie. I'd go with Antoine Winfield's kid, because he's Antoine Winfield's kid.
Antoine Winfield, real good for
player.
Yeah, a long time too. How about Kyle Duggar?
His problem is he's kind of buried on the depth chart in New England. And Bill Belichick never saw safety he doesn't want to draft. I don't know how many safeties they've taken in the past 5, 6, 7 drafts and how many have stuck, as opposed to just kind of languishing on the roster and then they wind up playing somewhere else. I mean, they've got the 2 established starters in McCourty and Chung. And then behind that, they signed Adrian Phillips in free agency. So I don't know where the snaps are going to come from.
Yeah, I'm with you. So just trying to throw out some examples here. What about this? Doug asked, Tracy Walker regression. Last season, Walker had 82 solos, 21 assists, no sacks, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble. But all those tackles, he averaged over 11 points a game, almost 12 points per game, which is much higher than some high-end guys here. It's much more than Landon Collins, than Harrison Smith, than Jabril Peppers, your boy, John Johnson III, who a lot of people love from the Rams. So he averaged a ton of points. Do we expect regression from him?
I do, but I don't know that it's going to. I think I either have him just inside my top 10 or just outside the top. Even if the tackle numbers slip a little bit, I would expect that there's going to be a little bump in big plays, because he essentially had none last year. And that's something of an anomaly in itself. So I think he's going to be okay. I would put him probably right on that DB1, DB2 borderline. I mean, it's the kind of guy that I would be fine having as a DB1, if only because normally my linebackers are where I want my tackles to come from, and I'm willing to speculate more on the back end. So, yeah, I kind of expect a regression, especially in tackles, but fantasy points-wise, I don't expect a significant one.
I mean, I tell you what, I don't expect him to fall off that much. He's still only 25 years old. He only played in he only started 12 games so far in his 2-year career. So I expect more of the same. Plus, more teams should be, if Stafford is staying healthy, that should be more points for the Lions, which means more tackles on the back end for the safeties in Detroit. So I'm all about this. And, I've been using the big play regression in my argument for Leonard Fournette this season, because everyone says, well, Chris Thompson comes in and now, Leonard Fournette is all of a sudden going to catch any more passes, which is ridiculous. But if you take 25 away from him, let's take 25 catches off of Leonard Fournette. Do you think he could have positive touchdown regression from only having 3 last year, bump it up to 7? Now the difference is 1 point. So that's a good point to make when a guy's on the back end. He had no sacks and 1 pick. He's probably going to do better than that this year. So even if you take a little bit of those, tackles away from him, he should make up in other ways.
When Leonard Fournette caught 70-plus passes last year, we should have known 2020 was going to be the apocalypse.
Oh, whatever.
We should have.
You know what? I'm not going to hear any Leonard Fournette smack talk on this podcast or any podcast I'm available on. I am
salty Bogman.
Yeah, super high on Leonard Fournette, and I always have been. So, what about? Let's see. I think we only have a couple more on the list here, unless you guys want to throw any out to us here. But what about buy or sell Minkah Fitzpatrick in 2020, Gary?
At his ADP, I'm selling. And that's not a slight on Minkah. I've got him, I want to say he's 13th among defensive backs. It's just the big play dependent guys have a tendency to make me a little nervous. And he was so good there in that first stretch in Pittsburgh where the big plays were just falling from the sky. That's just so hard to repeat.
Yeah, dude, I don't even have him that high. I have him in the mid 20s. So he's just not going to have that many, interceptions and just be there when the ball is there so many times last year and took it to the house twice. That's just not going.
So where do you have Terrell Edmonds then?
Terrell Edmonds. Well, I don't like Terrell Edmonds, and I've been bitter about that pick forever because, it could have been somebody else. I have him in the 30s as well. So I'm not really big on him. All he had was a bunch of tackles last year.
You must have him Pittsburgh linebackers making a bunch of tackles in.
Yeah. I mean, I have Devin Bush very, very high. Vince Williams is, I don't know, he's not as high as Devin Bush for me, but
Devin Bush played at Michigan, so he's a bump.
Right, exactly. Just where do you have Jabril Peppers in your defensive backs this year, Gary?
I don't.
Is he?
He's not listed. He's not listed.
There's no way he cracked your top 10, right? No way.
No, he didn't crack my top 10.
Did he really not crack your top 10, or?
No, I don't believe he did. He's just outside it, and even that made me want to vomit.
I mean, dude,
hold on, I'll look.
10.5 points last year, no sacks, but
11
a pick in 11. Like if you could just pick somewhere to put a guy out of bitterness, that is. And look, and look, I'm a guy. I'm a Texas fan. I hate Oklahoma. I hate A&M. But I brought up Kenneth Walker as my favorite rookie this year, and then I said that I mentioned Justin Evans as a possible sleeper. So I'm giving Oklahoma and A&M.
Don't understand true bitterness, man.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You need to get on the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry.
Yeah, you don't. You just proved
that the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is bigger and bitterer.
That might be true, but what I was going to say, you don't get to be this weight without being bitter about something. So but I think
I think you look like you lost weight, honestly.
I did not.
Good.
So I appreciate it. But on our baseball show this week, I have always kind of, as a D-backs fan, and you know a little bit. You lived out here, and you lived out here, I think, during this time. You remember Eric Burns?
Yeah.
I'm not a big Eric Burns fan, and my buddy paid for an Eric Burns cameo to inspire me to do my weight loss challenge for the D-backs this year. And he sat on it. He had it made in late February, and he sat on it until yesterday. I just found out about this yesterday.
That's a good friend
in our baseball show. So it was hilarious because the Welsh is freaking out. He's laughing so much, and I'm watching it so mad. I don't know. Like, I didn't say I no-sold it a little bit because I was just like, oh, this is so horrible. he got me. Yeah, he got me pretty good. That's Jag. For those of you that are in the Army, he's the one that bought that video. But I think that's going to wrap it up for us today, Gary. I got to get out and do some work. I know you got to get back to the grind. And you got some nasty weather heading your way. So
it hasn't. So I keep looking up at the basement window, and it's not all gray. And the better half didn't come running down the stairs with tree branches and stuff flying behind her. So far so good, man.
The basement window. What do you have? One of those like little way up high?
No, it's like the block glass, and it has a teeny tiny window. So the basement catches on fire, I'm barbecued. But that's okay. I'm willing to take that chance. I have wanted to be a mole person again for so long that you have no idea how happy it makes me to be back in a basement. And I'm gonna get it done up. I don't have a fancy backdrop and everything yet, but I'm working on it. I don't make the big Bogman bucks.
If you make any bucks, you make the big Bogman bucks. That's for sure. I mean, this was this ITL logo. All three of these were gifts. I did not pay for one of these.
And it's a great year to be in our line of work, man. It really is. It's truly, it's inspirational.
Oh man, yeah, we were rolling downhill pretty well in February, and then the pandy hit, and and I think
you kill me with that. The pandy. You make it sound all cute and adorable, like it just comes rolling down the hill. I'm the pandy. No, it's I'm the pandy.
Like I said, I definitely stole that from Bobby Lee because I listened to his podcast, Tiger Belly, and he has one with Andrew Santino called Bad Friends as well. And he started calling it the pandy, and I've been doing all that.
I'm giving you credit for it because I can do that. This is our show. I'm giving you credit.
Exactly. So remember, go on Fantrax, check it out. If you haven't yet, to sign up for all your IDP leagues. We have all kinds of great information there for you. So use Fantrax. If you would, let them know that we sent you there. We'd really appreciate it. And I also, Doug, you forgot I was a Longhorns fan. Come on, you knew that. So, but follow us on the Twitter at Bogman Sports, at IDP Sharks, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.
Jabril Peppers, still a bum.
Knew it.